G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the CX Central podcast. My name is Justin Tippett and today I'm going to be joined by Marc Carriere, who, well, let's just face it, he's the guru of all things team leaders and call centers. Welcome, Marc.
Hi, Justin. So glad to be with you guys here once more.
Yeah, great to have you back on. Now, as I sort of touched on that very brief intro, I mean, you've obviously got lots of experience in contact centers, but your niche is really around team leaders and getting team leaders to perform. So I'm super excited today because we're going to bust a few myths out there around, what it takes around team leaders and call centers.
Absolutely. Excuse me. In my view, team leaders are the backbone of any call center operation, and you get great team leader, their team will soar. You get a bad one, regrettably, they can rule the team and really do a lot of harm to the brand. So, getting the right team leader and making sure they've got the skills that they need to get their team performing is extremely critical. It's vital.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I think the team leader is the most important role in the contact center. Full stop. So let's bust a few of these myths, Marc. Myth number one: really good team members make the best team leaders.
Yeah, well, although it seems logical that someone who's really good on the phones and handling calls, should be able to share their skills with anyone. The reality is that most really good call center operators don't really know what they do that makes them successful. They just do it. It comes naturally to them. So, because it comes naturally to them, they can often find it very challenging on how to share what they do and how they do it with others. And, the other problem is that aside from knowing how to make and handle calls, a team leader's role requires a whole new, total new range of skills. Things like leadership and motivation, coaching, management, and people skills. So, aside from having a challenge in telling them or showing people how they do what they do, there's all these other skills that they need to have. So, often, and you got to be careful because you can take a really good operator, and if you don't support them and train them and help them learn all the other things they need to be as a team leader, next thing you know, after a few months, you decide, oh, geez, we've got to make a change. And because of that, you run the risk of losing a really good team leader because not a lot of them are keen to go back to the front line, and they're embarrassed because obviously they couldn't make it happen. So, you really risk losing a great operator as well. So it's a bit of a double whammy there.
Yeah, I'd even say it's a triple whammy because the other challenge, of course, is if you've got someone who's not leading well, then it affects everyone in the team. So you're actually bringing the whole team down as well. So couldn't agree more. Just because they're a great person on the call center floor on the phones and they're getting the best quality scores or the best quantity or whatever it is that you're measuring doesn't mean they're going to be a great team leader. You've got to make sure they get the right skills to lead people. So bang, busted.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got to have the innate characteristics. A lot of that, excuse me, comes back to having, in my view, high emotional intelligence. That's the big key, I think, and being able to, have empathy. And obviously, coming from the front line, they have a lot of empathy on what the job's all about. But so they can be really good that way. But they need the other skills to help them transfer the knowledge that they have. So very, very highly important.
Critical, agree. All right, myth number two, Marc. Team leaders must be subject matter experts.
Yeah, you see this often. Some senior managers think that team leader has to be a subject matter expert, and because their role is their company is just so different and things like this. And the problem with that is they can be creating a bit of a trap because what happens is they they promote this person, usually somebody from within, obviously, because they have the subject matter expertise. But the problem is this person that they selected thinks that their role as a team leader is just to share that knowledge, and they forget about all the other things that they need to do. And because they feel that they just have to share that knowledge and answer questions in that, they tend to stay away from other critical areas, and they don't give a lot of help to people in that area. And that's their thinking because it's reinforced by being promoted. I mean, the reason you promoted me was because I know all about this stuff. And, it can be as well with systems knowledge too. I mean, I worked with a client who they were the largest sellers. This is pre-COVID, largest sellers of cruise vacations around the world. They were selling about 600 million worth of cruise sales here in Australia annually. Excuse me, that's globally. Annually, here was about 200 million. But they would have 3 or 4 different systems that, to book cruises and things like that.
Yep.
And so, they hired, I remember one chap they hired, a really nice guy, and he knew the systems backwards. But the problem was he wasn't great at being a team leader and at motivating the team or helping them learn the skills aside from the systems. And quite frankly, they had to make a change with him. I mean, they kept him, but they had to move him because he wasn't helping the team very well.
Yeah.
So, and you got to be careful because if you do that, what happens is that you get other people on the team who may have really, really good leadership skills, but they think, oh God, it'll take me forever to get the subject matter expertise. So, I'm not even going to bother. And oftentimes they'll move on. And the other team can get disengaged because they're feeling, well, I'm not getting the help I need in other areas. So often they can leave too because, really the reality is people don't leave their jobs so much as they leave their supervisor or the manager.
Sure.
So you got to be careful of that.
Marc, I agree with you. The team leaders don't need to be subject matter experts, but there are, as you touched on, a lot of call centers that are quite complex and they have ridiculous amounts of systems that we expect everyone to try and learn and get their head around. And of course, when you're on the phones and you get stuck, your first point of call is typically to go to the team leader. If they don't have subject matter expertise, I'm teasing you here, how does that work? Because you can sort of go, well, geez, that's not ideal. What's the solution then?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't select somebody who didn't have the necessary skills in that regard. And you think about it, they can't be that good as an operator if they're not that good with the systems.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you've got to find the balance. Definitely they need to have the systems knowledge, be an expert in that area so they can help their team there. But I mean, I would focus more so on the innate leadership qualities of a person because I think it's a lot easier to teach them the systems knowledge later.
Now, we're making a big assumption that we're promoting internally, but obviously sometimes that's not possible for a bunch of different reasons, and you recruit externally. And if you did that, of course, they would come with no system knowledge whatsoever. When you find yourself in that situation, do you think that it's better for contact center managers, et cetera, to go, you know what, I don't care, I want the leadership skills, that's what's more important, because there will be subject matter experts within the team. And if you're a good leader, you would get that out of the people, right? You'd use them to help.
No question. And the key is having the traits and characteristics of amazing leadership first. Because everything else can be taught.
Sure.
They can learn all of that because those are learned skills. I mean, the others are more innate within the individual.
Yep.
And, it's hard to train that into people, but, it's a lot easier to train them on product knowledge and systems knowledge, most definitely. So, and you might even part of their induction maybe that they spend a few weeks, learning this before they take over the team, or and they spend a few weeks on the phone as a frontline operator before they take over the team.
Yep. You've given me a great segue into myth number 3, and that was that call center managers have the skill set and the time to train team leaders.
Yeah, well, oftentimes, what you find is, here's the inconvenient truth. Excuse me, in my view anyway, is that team leaders rarely get the team leader training and coaching and support that they need from their call center managers. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. One of them is that often the call center manager has come from the team leader ranks themselves
Yep.
and hadn't had a formal training process on how to be a great team leader. Covering a lot of things like call monitoring and scoring and providing feedback and doing on-the-job coaching and all of these things. These are things that they picked up as they went along.
Yep.
And quite often there's gaps. And so what happens is that the call center managers tend to focus on the things that they know, and they provide a lot of ad hoc training.
Sure. Yep.
And they might provide 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and things like that. But there's no formal process that they can fall back on or rely on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, often it's piecemeal. And
Yep.
then, the call center manager has a lot of admin type jobs to do and things like that, reports and this, and they'll use that as part of their excuse for why they just don't have the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have told them, and I have showed them, and and they should, of course they know, I told them, and that's the thing is they don't make sure that they really know and that they're applying the knowledge as well. That's the other.
Yep. And look, that's my experience. I think most of the contact centers that you go into and you talk and meet with contact center managers, typically they're not sitting around all day twiddling their thumbs. They're incredibly busy people. There's a lot going on when you're managing a call center. And
tell me about
so,
it.
you're putting out fires all day, every day. So it does make it really hard, as you said, to upskill, particularly if they've never had the skills in actually, themselves, embedded themselves. So no, completely agree. Which I guess leads us into myth number 4, Marc, which is that team leaders have the time to develop their teams.
Yeah, well, this is very similar in a lot of ways with the call center manager and having the time. And as call center managers are, team leaders are very hardworking as well. And you just but what you have to do is have a look at what they actually do and all the different tasks that they have each week, because a lot of them will tell you they just don't have the time because of all the supervision and the HR and other things that they have to do. And some of them do have a point. However, what you've got to look at is what is it that they're actually doing and how important is it? And, get an understanding of what's the number one focus of their job. And the number one focus of the job, in my view, is, to make sure that their team is continuously and regularly hitting their KPIs and their goals and targets every month. And, to do that, you need to help the underperformers rise. And, not only that, but you need to make sure that the top performers are still bubbling, and boiling and making sure that they're hitting their targets as well. Oftentimes people will focus too much on the underperformers and forget about the top operators too. They still need your love as well.
Yep.
So, the thing is, what you've got to do is eliminate their excuses.
Sure. Yep.
Have a look at what they're doing and making sure that they're scheduling the time to do these, things like monitoring calls and scoring calls and providing feedback and training and things like that, and strip away those things that aren't as important.
Yep. Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. I was just looking at the, I don't know if people have seen it, the 2021 Contact Center Industry Benchmarking report that was put out by Smart Recruitment. And there were some interesting stats in there that just reiterate that, Marc. So one of the questions was, do you have a structured and ongoing learning and development program for team leaders? And 60% of respondents said no.
Oh, I'm surprised it's only 60%.
Plenty of opportunities, right, to do some training. Now, on that particular topic, Marc, you recently just wrote an article on CX Central about how to manage a team leader's time. So it actually went into a little bit of detail of what people can do. The rocks, pebbles, and sand theory was covered, but really to work out what your team leaders do and some tools, etc. So if you haven't read that, you'll find it on cxcentral.com.au. Marc, the fifth and final myth we want to sort of smash out there was that only large companies benefit from developing their team leaders.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard this, from a lot of different CEOs, or they'll have a small company, so maybe they've got 20 operators, and the call center manager is basically the team leader, and they say, "Oh, look," or they'll have a 2IC or small operators at 2 shifts, and they say, "Oh, look, we only have a couple of team leaders. It doesn't really matter that much. They know what they're supposed to do." And quite frankly, you know, uh, profit and productivity in call centers are measured hourly, and frankly, it doesn't matter how many team leaders you have and how many people are on the team. Let me have the caveat that you can't have a team leader with a team of 100,
Yep.
but reasonable size, say anywhere from 8 to 15. So it doesn't matter how many are on that team. If that team isn't productive, they'll never be profitable. And it doesn't matter how many team leaders you have or how productive. Each team needs to be productive to be profitable. And so, you need to ensure that every team leader has the skills that they need to make sure that their team can be productive and profitable. And to raise the bottom underachievers into consistently hitting their targets and KPIs. And you can't do that unless you're taking the time and spending the energy effectively coaching them and training them on how to do their jobs to the best of their abilities.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. I think sometimes the team leaders get a little bit left out. We focus on doing some frontline training, and there might be management training for the contact center managers or the workforce planners or the quality assurance guys. But, the team leaders are often the ones that sort of get brushed over, and they're the ones that probably need it the most. And as we said right at the start of this show, they're the most critical role in your contact center. So if you can get them working effectively, everything else just pales into insignificance.
Well, you think about it, all the other roles that you mentioned are clearly important, but who spends the most time with the frontline operators?
Yeah, team leader, clearly.
Team leaders. So, I mean, if you don't have them upskilled and, up-level them so that they can effectively engage with their team and help them become better than they can be, I mean, what does it matter? I mean, you could have the best, best product in the world. You can have the best, things like that. But if your team isn't effective, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Very, very good point, Marc. Now, of course, you do specialise in training for team leaders. So if people are interested in learning more about your course, there's a couple of options. You have a live one. It's a 4-week program, 4 2-hour sessions over 4 weeks. So you'll find that on the CX Skills website, and we actually call it Creating Amazing Call Center Team Leaders. So you'll find out more about that. And we also have a self-paced module, Marc, where it's an online one, so people can just log in and go through the course at their own pace. And again, you'll find that on the CX Central website. Now, if you're interested in just learning more about some tips on all things contact centers, Marc has written a whole bunch of articles. I think he's up to 19 articles, I think it is, on CX Central. So if you do want to head over to CX Central, cxcentral.com.au, you'll find heaps of those articles there. Look under tips for team leaders. It couldn't be any easier to find them. Marc, thank you as per usual for all your time. I know you're incredibly passionate about team leaders. Your whole business is around that. And I know there's a lot of consultants and there's a lot of trainers out there that are, jack of all trades and can do lots of training. But, what I really like is that you really hone in on the team leaders, and you've got some incredible tools that you've built up over over your career that are shared in that course. So if you are interested in doing a course, I thoroughly recommend you check out Marc's. But I'm sure, Marc, we will have you back on again. If it's not later this year, it'll be early next year, and we will cover off a couple of other myths around team leaders.
That'd be wonderful. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, Justin, and your team.
Good on you, Marc.
Or your audience, rather.
Awesome. All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Bye for now.